Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Mike and this is Build and Tinker. And as we approach December, the nights get darker, but no night is darker than the Dark Knight himself. That's right, we're back with the 1989 Batmobile, Pack 2, issues 3, 4 and 5. There's lots to do, so let's get started. And here are all the parts for issue 3 for this 1989 Batmobile. And as you can see, there's quite a few, and we're focusing on the back of the car. So in the first issue, we did the front turbine inlet. This is the turbine outlet, and it goes on the back of the car, and you have this exhaust vent. This is a really nice piece. It's got some sort of a little bit of weathering on it, sort of heat discoloration. It's made of metal, so it's a nice heavy piece. We then have the back plate, some exhaust collars, and other bits and pieces, and then this sort of central turbine piece. So let's start putting this together. And we start by taking these. There's 6 of them. They're labelled as the reactor tube shafts, and they go here on this back plate. With this sort of spiky end is going to face outwards. You'll notice if you look closely at the other end that it is keywayed. So there is a correct way for them to go into this plate, and you'll see each of these keywayed holes here. So these are all identical. They just need to be put in the correct orientation. So we'll do that now. And it is literally, for the moment, a push fit. So that's all of those in. Now they do push in, but they just rest in place. So don't try and push them in. They're not going to hold themselves in. There's another piece that's going to go over the top. And that other piece are these collars here. So we've got 6 of them. And they're going to go with you'll see they're slightly chamfered. So the narrow side facing up. And they're just going to sit over the top. And again, they push over the little collars, the base parts here, and they will hold themselves in place. So we'll gently make sure they're all sitting flush. It's kind of a slightly sharp edge, so be a bit careful when you're pushing on it. You might want to push on it with something else first, but again, don't push too hard. It should go in without a lot of force. But yeah, I'm just going to use this handle on these tweezers to give it a gentle push down, and I can feel them. Each one now is sort of sitting home properly, except this last one. Let's give him another push. There we go. So we can see from this angle they're all sat nice and flush. Next we take the vent center, which is this piece, and the vent base, and they're simply going to come together. And again, if you look at the shape here, we can see there's a very obvious keyway. So we're going to attach one to the other, making sure that we've engaged the keyway. There is a screw to hold those in. It's the B screw, so let's get that ready. And while I screw this in, now would be a great time for you to click that like and subscribe button. Subscribing really helps, and it costs you nothing. It just promotes the channel and helps YouTube suggest the videos that I make to other people. So with that attached, we now need to put this into here. Now there's going to be a right way up. We can see on the base there we've got a couple of these clips, and if we look at the rear of the base, you can see there's some gaps for those clips to go in. So we identify the clip here that's nearest to the largest hole. See that there? That's going to go at the top of this base plate. Okay, and this being the top. So we simply push that in, and we're just going to check that it engaged properly on the other side. Need to straighten it up a little bit. And there we are. And then with a push, it now clicks into place. And it looks like that. And now we need to fit the large exhaust cone. And again, that's just going to push over, and you'll see there are holes here and here. So we're going to identify the top one because the holes are not equally spaced. So the top one there in the center, and you'll see these ones here are less than a third of the way around. So those are the bottom ones there. So we'll only go one way. And we'll just push it gently onto the plastic, and it clicks into place quite easy. And now we've got the vent with that wonderful set of sort of turbines you can just see on the inside. But we're not done yet. Either side we've got some more. These are called reactor. No, these are the exhaust pipes. Sorry, those are the reactor vents apparently, and these are exhaust pipes. Now we've got 4 of them. Again, they have a keywayed end, and they're going to sit into these holes here. So far as I can tell, they're identical. Yeah, they are. So they're going to sit in these holes here, and then they're going to be screwed in from behind. So it's probably easier to do one at a time. Again, we're using B screws for that. So that's one in, and we just repeat that with the other 3. And there are the 4 exhausts installed. So there's a bit more to do yet. There's 4 exhaust shafts. They are very small, and they, again, very similar to the ones we put on earlier. They're flat on one end, and they've got like a little propellery type thing on the other. These ones appear not to be keyrayed. I think we can just put them in any way. They go through the middle of these exhaust pipes into sort of a little receptacle at the bottom. So we need to make sure they go in straight. And in fact, it's pretty straightforward. I just pushed it in, and it's quite a nice tight push fit. So we'll just make sure they're pushed all the way down. Do all 4 of those. Okay, just use my nails to kind of push in the center to get them all the way home. And finally, there's 4 more collars. They're metal, just like the other ones we fitted earlier. They're a bit shorter. And they go on the outside of these exhausts. They're chamfered, so we take the narrower end and we push that into the exhaust. And again, it's just a gentle push fit into each one. Now, we've got to be careful pushing because we're pushing against plastic. And also, again, these are a little bit sharp on your fingers if you're pushing against it. So you might want to find something flat you can gently use. I'm just using a pair of tweezers to support the opposite side and just give it a push. Make sure it's straight. You don't need to push hard. Yeah, and they're all in. They're perfect. And that is the completed piece and the end of issue 3. And it really is a rather nice piece. So we've got a mixture of metal and plastic pieces, but with some nice details on the inside there of the afterburner. Yeah, so I quite like that. So let's move on to issue 4. So here we have the various pieces for issue 4. And as you can see, it's pretty much all dashboard. We have the main shell of the dashboard. We've actually got the steering wheel, a number of instrument panels and inlays for those. Some parts I've left in the bag because there's lots and lots of little pieces. It's pretty much all plastic. But we also get some LEDs in a bag here. Apparently there's 4 in there. Yep. And a little circuit board to test. We may or may not be using that because I have my Test Circuit Pro here instead. So let's start. We're going to start with the first step, which is actually the steering wheel. We need to put the center boss into it. So this is the rear part of the steering wheel boss, and then that's the front cover. It actually does have the Bat logo on it. So this is all push fit. We just need to orientate everything correctly. So you'll see from the shape of the boss there that you can just sit the steering wheel over the top. And then we take the cover, and there's 3 pins on the back, and we just need to line them all up. And it will go through the steering wheel and into the rear plate. And hopefully with a push, there we are. Some reassuring, if not slightly scary clicks, it goes into place, and there's our steering wheel. So we'll set that to one side, and the next stage we need to take the main shell of the dashboard, and we're going to take these LEDs. So there's a cable here, and it's got 4 LEDs. Each is surface mount onto a small circuit board, and they're all in a line. So we need to screw these into the dash and make sure we get them in the right order. So the one at the end, so we've got a plug. We have a plug at one end, and then a string of LEDs, and then at the other end we have one of the LEDs. So that's our first LED. And it needs to be attached to the back of the dash shell. So with the shell this way up, it sits just here. Can you see there's a screw hole just in the bottom there? And we need to lay this gently. There is a locating pin in the top left corner of the circuit board as well. And with it lined up like so, we can put in an E screw. So with this first one, and we now repeat that as we move along. The second LED is actually down here. It's not this one here, that's the third one. So it's down the bottom. And again, just gently making sure it's facing the right way up. Position it over the screw hole and the locating post. Just like so, and then we can screw it in. So that's the second one done, and then we do the third. And the last one will be here. So I'll just go ahead and do those 2. And that's all 4 of those LEDs in. You can just take your time, be careful with it. You can tear the cables off these circuit boards if you're not careful. But the next thing we need to do is give it a test. Now, it's always test your electronics as you're putting them in. And again at each stage. It's very easy for a cable particularly with a part that gets moved around a lot. Very easy for a cable to get snapped, for a plug to come off, for a pin to come out of a plug. Yeah, these are very small and they're quite delicate. So we test at this stage, we'll put all the covers on, we'll test it again. When it goes into the car, we'll test it again. Before we put the body on the car onto the chassis, we'll test it again. We'll test everything multiple times, which is why having a useful test setup is really important. Now, most models don't give you anything to test with. This one does. It gives you a small circuit board, which is powered by a little button cell. So they have given us this little test board. It can test LEDs, and it looks like it can test a motor as well. Obviously very specifically tuned to this model, which is helpful if you don't have any other way of testing. I don't recommend multimeters. The whole reason why, even if you know how to use them, they can give you false positives on all sorts of things. There's actually I put an article on Mike Lane's website about it. But let's see how their tester fares up to my one. So we're going to put the battery in the back of here. And we're going to plug our lights into the one labeled LED. And there you see the lights came on. And there is a switch which doesn't seem to be doing anything. So that's handy. These are really tight fit socket for some reason. They've used a really slightly undersized socket. So that was I almost ripped the cable taking that out. What I normally use this. This is my Test Circuit Pro. This is designed to test any type of LED, any type of motor. It's got a speaker tester, a switch tester, battery tester, all sorts of things. It takes USB power. And the reason I like this is it's very simple. We plug it in. We can plug in before we test. We press the button and we test it. Now you notice it tests it a little dimmer. That's fine. We're just testing it to see if it works. We're not testing it for final brightness. And the reason I like this is it's suitable for any LED on any part work. And it doesn't even matter if the polarity is different. There is no standardization on component polarity in part works. So you see that is testing that at the touch of a button. If the polarity was different, I can simply switch the polarity over. There's also different size sockets and what have you. So I tend to use this. It's automatically adjusts the voltage and the current output to suit the LED you've plugged in. So whilst this board's great for the Batmobile 89, sorry, it may not be good for other part work models. So, and the temptation is to use it. Also, if the battery goes flat, you can't use it anyway. So with our LEDs tested and we know we're happy to move on, the next thing is to assemble this piece here. It's the television screen. So there's a bezel and then there's the screen itself. Now in this packet with the screen are a few other little pieces. So let's be careful about not losing them. I'm not entirely sure what they're for because they don't get mentioned just yet. So we'll keep these to one side. The screen itself has these little red pins sort of molded into it. So it goes in from the back. I need to make sure I get it the right way up, whichever way that is. Okay, so when we look at the back here, you can see there's some posts and they align with some holes in this screen piece. So it's quite straightforward. We place one over the top. We gently push it through. Oh, that's sound makes me nervous, but it's a good sound, and we can see now that is pushed through, and we've got these four they look like lights or buttons that are now flush in those holes. We've got our screen. Obviously, it's not a functioning screen, but I think we all know that that's going to be coming through a mod. And now we attach that screen to the main frame of the dashboard. So we need to make sure we get our cable routed out the right way. Okay, so it basically wants us to route the cable through this tiny little channel here. So this is where we need to be careful not to pinch things. And the screen sits over like so. And then there's a screw hole in the back, and we're going to attach that with a D screw. Okay, so there we have our screen in place. So now we need to find which pieces are going to go into the back of one of the dash panels, and they are different colours, and those colours are represented in the picture, but it is a little bit fiddly. So this is the panel we're fitting pieces to. It's a dash panel. You can see it's got this silver piece, and we put all the pieces in from the back. So we're going to lay that there for a second. What we're looking for is 2 silver pieces and a black piece. Now, I think I found the pieces I want. One of them is this. It's got 3 posts sticking out, and you'll see it's ever so slightly curved. That is 422, and it goes into the bottom section. Can you see how you've got 3 holes there at the very top of the bottom section, and they're curved? And you'll see that follows that curve nicely, and when we push it through, we get 3 silver buttons, and we're going to give it a really firm push because we want those buttons to stick out the other side. So we want them to stick out quite some distance on the other side. So that's the first one. The next one is also silver. It's 4-20. It's got 2 pins coming out there, and if you look at the shape on the back, it's got a little notch. That goes into the top section of this piece, and we're looking for the top left hole, and then the hole on the next row down but one across. And that's going to span with the cutout on the left, on my left. It's going to span those holes like that. Now we need a black piece. We're looking for 4-23, and it's this one. It's got 3 posts, and it's pretty much straight on the back. There is a slight indentation on this one side. I think that indentation goes uppermost. We're going into the bottom 3 holes here in this panel. And again, just push it through as far as it will go. And you'll see we now have these 3 buttons here. Getting ever closer. Now we need a red piece. It's the largest of the red pieces, and it has this sort of shape. So it's wider at one end. You've got 2 posts there and 1 at the end. So we take this red piece. The 2 posts that are together are going to go into these 2 lower holes here. And when they do, you'll see that the upper post sort of presents itself in this hole in the corner. We're almost there. So the final piece we need is a black piece. It has a unique shape. So that's the shape. And it's got this little indent recess piece in it. And on the other side, we've got 4 posts that are actually kind of look like rotary dial knobs. That's going to occupy the 1 piece of remaining space at the top of this panel, and it literally sits that way around. And again, we give it a push. And then when we flip it over, we now have these 4 controls. Now, this is complete. We've got all the holes filled. So it now needs to be added to the dashboard. And it goes into the dashboard to the left of this screen. You'll see just here are 2 tabs, slots. And there are 2 tabs on the side of here. So it literally slots straight down and slides in. No screws. It's going to be held in place by the top piece that goes over this eventually. So there we are. There's that piece. There's loads of little pieces still on the bench, so be very, very careful not to swipe your arm across and knock them all out. That's the sort of thing I do all the time. So we're going to do another panel, and it's a larger panel. It's this one here. It has this kind of silver grid on it. Again, everything goes in from the back. And we're taking this large black piece here, and it's got a number of controls and then this sort of stepped cutout in the middle of it. So that's going to go this way up, and it's going to fit over those holes like so. Again, we're going to push it firmly until it won't go any further. And we'll have some controls now poking out the other side. Then this silver one, that goes in this way up. So the very small posts, they're going to stick out of these row of holes here. And then this dog legs piece is going to come down and present a little button just there. Now we take this panel, 410, and that's going to go over the back of all of this. And you'll see there's a post here for a screw hole, so it's pretty obvious which way up it goes, and you just push that in again until it won't go any further, and you'll see we've now got a selection of kind of illuminate or semi-transparent lights and buttons. We are going to put a D screw through that post, and then this whole panel gets attached to the shell. Again, there's another little tab recess here, and there's a tab on the bottom of that, so we're going to engage that tab into that recess. And it just drops in place, and I think we're just going to rest it there for the moment because, again, it's the panel above that's going to hold it in. And now we're going to make that panel above, and it's the main instrument panel, and it's got all these wonderful instrument holes in it. It looks like very much like an aircraft more than a car. We've got a few button pieces to install. It's probably the last of all these small bits, hopefully. We're going to start with this odd shaped one. That's going to go on the back. It goes on the left hand side, on my left, and it goes that way up. And once you lay it in, you'll see how the different buttons line up with their respective holes. Then we can push it all the way through. Again, as tightly as you can. It does. You can hear the sound as I'm pushing it in, but we've now got these 3 control knobs on that side. There's another black piece to put in. Again, it's quite an unusual shape. Looks like a shoe, and it goes in on the opposite side. And again, we'll give it a nice firm push. That gives us the controls on the opposite side. One more black piece to put in, and easily identifiable because it's just sort of straight. It's got a few little posts, and that's going to go along the bottom here. There's a bulgy bit here that sticks up. That goes uppermost. So again, just drops into the bottom row of holes. And everything should stick out proud on the opposite side. And now one last silver piece. So this long silver piece here, which has a little kink in it and then a little cutout at the top. That's going to go, again, towards the bottom. And in fact, that little cutout was on the bottom. It's going to line up with the little bulge in the piece we just fitted. So it's going to sit over the top like so. Just like that. And again, I'll push it in. So that's all the individual button pieces. The next piece is quite straightforward because it's literally all these instruments and they're all in one plastic panel that just drops straight over the top of everything. And we do put some screws in it. We put 2 D screws in there on these posts to hold it in place. And that's the panel finished, and doesn't it look good? It's got some nice detailed gauges on it. Again, very much aviation feel, but that makes sense. It's rocket powered. Or turbine powered, sorry. Another panel to make. This one shouldn't take too long. It's simply a matter on this one of taking, I think, some of the last of these pieces now. So there's a black button panel. That's going to go over here on the left-hand side. It's going to go with that big run of buttons. It's going to go right at the top, just like that. And then we have, I think it's the last of the silver pieces. Yeah, it's got 2 rows of silver buttons and they go into this section here. I don't know if there's a right way up or not. It kind of looks like it'll go in either way. Yeah, that was quite a loose fit. So make sure we hold on to that. We then have this silver button piece. That's going to drop into the gap here underneath this black one. And it goes like that, leaving those 2 holes in the center free. And those holes get filled with this tiny little red plastic piece that has 2 posts. And it literally just goes in those 2 remaining holes. This one is a bit tricky with the fingers. Just going to make sure that's pushed all the way down so it doesn't fall out. And you can see that panel's now complete with all of the holes filled. And what we didn't do, which I was supposed to do, was actually fit this middle one. I got so excited I just moved on to the next one. So it's very straightforward. It just drops into place here on the dash. You can see where everything lines up. It sits quite nicely there, and there are a couple of screws here on the back that we need to put in. Again, they're D. And then this last panel gets screwed into place. Again, it's pretty obvious where it goes. It sits here. There's 1 screw post. And we're almost there, but you see we have a gap. And that gap gets filled with this last panel. So this one's a little bit easier. It uses the last of our button pieces. So there's this black one here and it has a slot in it. The slot goes to, if we're holding this way up, this slot goes on the right. And again, we just push the black piece in, give it a firm with our nails, just push it in nice and tight. And then we've got 1 remaining set of red buttons and they're going to go across that panel, pin side in, if I can get it in. And I'll probably just use the tip of the screwdriver to gently push that down, make sure it's gone all the way. And there we are, that's that panel done. It then goes into the 1 remaining slot in the dashboard this way up. There's a little tab we need to engage into a slot there. Very simple fit. And then 1 screw goes in here, a D screw again to hold that last panel in place. You've got to make sure you get the angle of the screw right to find the post internally. So just take it gently and you'll feel it, whether it's engaged properly or not. There we go. And I have a piece left over, this piece, and I shouldn't. So let's go back and see where I missed it. In all the excitement to get these panels built, sometimes you can miss a piece that's really staring at you in the face. It was right here, step 4D. When we put this on and we exited our cable through that little gap, I was supposed to put this over the top. It just sits over like so. And the cable's exiting through there's a little slot for it. It's coming out this way. And there is a screw hole. I don't know how well I can show you this, but there it is. There's a screw hole down in there for another D screw. I said before, I don't pre-read the instructions. I just do it as I'm going, whilst also trying to film. And I'm also one of those, I'm more of a visual person. I'll tend to look at the pictures rather than read the words because I'm lazy. And with that done, that is the entire dashboard complete. And it looks quite fantastic. I really like it. Obviously, me being me, and obviously with what I do, it's going to get the mod treatment, and it's going to have all the fancy things that we've seen in the back dash for the 66 and for kit and what have you. So I'll get started on that. But even as a piece on its own, it looks pretty good. But of course, we have to test everything. So let's plug it in and see what happens when we test it and see how it looks now that we've got all of the lights and what have you in place. And there it is. Looks pretty snazzy. It's nice that there's quite a few different sort of translucent pieces where we can see light coming out. Obviously, I've got all of my camera recording lights, so it's fighting with that a little. And again, you've got lights down here. It looks pretty good. We obviously can do better, and we shall. But that's the end of issue 4. And let's move on to issue 5. So here are all the components for issue 5, and they're all part of the front turbine. And we're actually going to start with this plate here and start by assembling the shaft onto that plate. So the shaft has a flange on one end and not on the other, and it's this end that's going to go through this hole in the center of the plate until it goes all the way through like so. Well, should we start by putting this on the right way, because I put this the wrong way around. Let's flip that around. This goes in from the rear like so that we have the recessed piece there, and then these go on top. So it wants one. Again, the keyway, so they can only go on rotated in a particular way. And that's the second one. And then we take this big housing piece, and that goes over the top of the whole lot. So to get this oriented the right way, you'll see there's a little cutout here. On the inside of here, there is this shaped piece. So you need to align that with that cutout. And then that will allow these posts to sit over these screw holes. Now we're going to put 3 D screws into the back here. Okay, so that's now screwed together. This can still move, but that's okay. We'll pop that down on the bench. And then this piece here goes over the top of this column, and you'll see it rotates into place so that it sits over these screw holes. Now, again, there we go. That's going to drop in nicely. There's a couple of locating pins as well to help get that oriented correctly. That literally just pushed into place. And then we get the smaller of these turbine fans, and that's going to go over the shaft as well. Then we've got a couple of silver pipes, and they need to go onto the case, and you'll see there's holes on the case here, and they're simply a push fit into those holes. Just like that. And that's the assembly complete. So that's the end of issue 5. And here's the results of all of our work. So we've got the wonderful rear afterburner and all the exhausts, and that's going to look pretty cool. This front turbine mechanism, which I guess is going to get hidden under the hood. And then, of course, the dashboard, which looks amazing with all of the instruments and dials, and then our steering wheel. Now, I'm going to hazard a guess that this piece doesn't go in the car for a long time, and neither does this, because we're going to need the entire floor pan, we're going to need the chassis, I suspect we'll have the wheels on, we maybe even start at the interior. In most builds, that's going to be around issue 40, maybe 50. So this needs somewhere safe to live, this needs somewhere safe to live, and of course so does our steering wheel, which is why it's really important to have somewhere to keep your parts nice and secure. I use large plastic tubs that are stackable, and then bits of foam and what have you within those to keep some of these parts separate. And I've got one for each model, and they just stack up in the corner of this room. If you could see the rest of this room, you'd see just how many boxes I have. One day I will do a little tour and show you around, see what I've got. I've got loads of models that aren't on the channel, which are in some finished, some are not. There's a big red bus behind me, which you can't see. And I've got some other cool things you might be interested in here as well in my little man cave. So some great iconic pieces of the build there. The dashboard in particular has got me thinking about how we can upgrade that and give it some cool features. And of course the afterburner. Anyone who has the 1966 Batmobile with the bat circuit in it and the afterburner fitted will see how great that looks with the correct animations and pieces. So this one's a lot bigger, and I think in some respects means we can do even more with it. So looking forward to see how that turns out. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do click that like button and that subscribe button, and share with your friends if you think there's someone you know who might want to enjoy this content as well. Do leave any comments below, suggestions on what mods to do and what mods maybe not to do, which bits are screen accurate and which aren't. I've seen the movies, but it was a while ago. I'm going to have to catch up and do a bit more analysis on the scenes that include the car. But in the meantime, I hope you're enjoying your build as much as I'm enjoying mine. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.